Hey AfterBuzzers, welcome back to the Good Doctor After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. Tonight we are breaking down Season 2, Episode 1, Middle Ground. Shaun starts practicing his lying. Dr. Lim goes out on a whim for a patient, and Dr. Glassman preps for his surgery. There's so much to cover, so don't go anywhere.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
So much happened this week with Shaun, just with everyone else.
I think it was good to see a little bit of everyone else come into the picture as well. I think we know Shaun is very prominent, but I think it was just a couple of actors that came into that were very standoff, so I think it was good.
Yes, I'm excited about Shaun finally telling, Leah how he feels, so I'm excited to get into that.
Before we get into that, what's up, everyone? I'm Veronica Valencia, and joining me today, I have some fabulous co-hosts.
Hi, everybody. I'm Taquela. Be sure to check me out at Taquela_I am.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carlina Will.
Coming up later in the show, of course, we're going to be talking all about Shaun, him trying to practice lying, Dr. Lim, going out of her way to help a patient who had some pretty, crazy stuff happen to her when she was a kid, and of course, Dr. Glassman just trying to get all the right things in place for his surgery, as well as Taquela has some news about female circumcision that was very prominent in Dr. Lim's story this week. But before we get into any of that, ladies, what did we think about this episode overall?
I think Leah's not done, and I can't wait to see how she reinvents herself or comes back to apologize to Shaun. I think Shaun is always on the up when it comes to diagnosing people with just looking at them, and it's so weird or unique in his perspective to just monitor. I think Paul was maybe just custodial, and just to see over time, I talked to him and this was happening inside his mouth, and he has jaundice and all these other things that made Melendez kind of change his thought and then order Shaun to do the test. But those are my two facts that stood out this episode.
Doctors are fantastic about noticing that kind of
so,
stuff, which is crazy.
Especially Shaun.
Oh, especially Shaun. I'm interested to get into Dr. Lim's story about, helping the poor girl. It's really hard to go against your traditions in your family, so I'm excited to get into that.
I was going to say, I know in a lot of episodes we always tend to focus on our residents, so Shaun, Jared up until last week's episode, and Claire, and even Morgan, but I liked how we were able to see a little bit more of the other surgical staff with Dr. Lynn and what she went through this episode, which I found incredibly interesting. And so overall, I thought this episode was really great. I thought it was a lot of great growth for Shaun as well. And speaking of his growth, let's get right into him and what he was up to this episode. Obviously, a lot of this episode kind of focused on him, being able to still work on his communication, but also lying when necessary. And we all know Shaun.
Yes.
He says, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He says what's up. He says what he is thinking, even if it might not be the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensitive.
Yeah.
What did we think? Did we just right off the bat, when we knew that this was something Shaun was going to be working on this episode, did we think it was going to be easy for him? Do we think he could do it?
I actually thought he was going to put up a little bit of a fight, just because that's not who he is. He's used to just saying things without thinking about the sensitivity or if it's appropriate in this area and how to more so conduct himself as doctor manners are supposed to be conducted, if I can say that. So I thought that it was going to be a little bit complicated for him, but it so turned out that even when he's speaking with Paul, excuse me, that Paul receives his information. Paul is one of those people who doesn't mind the hard facts, being direct and being honest with you, now where other people aren't immune to those type of communication skills. But it did work well with Paul, and I think that kind of is what helped Shaun kind of see it, that there are ways that he can work on, but he was comfortable in that manner, and the first time it went well for him.
Yes, I was really proud of Shaun this episode. You could tell it was a little bit rocky because he was just when he told his family that the surgery went well, you're like, we're supposed to say the complications. It was Shaun's side, and Claire's like, keep walking.
Let them have this.
Yes, let them have this. But I get where he's also coming from a doctor's perspective. I don't think it's just Shaun. You should be like, oh yeah, he's great now, but here's the risks that we're just currently monitoring. So I think that's probably what Claire means, for Shaun to kind of work on. Because doctors do tell families that. So, but yeah, I was proud of him. He did a great job.
I agree. I was super proud of him. And not only that, I just thought it was very interesting regarding the patient storyline for Shaun this week, where, you know, there's a lot of patients coming in and out, but Paul was the everyday janitor and, you know, he seemed perfectly fine. But the fact that Shaun was so intuitive and knew something was up with him, it just shows how amazing he is. And we know this of Shaun. We know that he can pinpoint things that maybe not everyone would see with the naked eye. Any other doctor, even Melendez.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was very proud that he was able to convince Melendez, so to speak, to get Paul in to be tested for pancreatic cancer, which we did find out he had.
And
Yeah.
I think he has to still win Melendez over a little bit. I don't know if Melendez fully trusts Shaun on his own or still trusts his skills and what he brings to the team. But I think that also was another point where he was right, just again by looking at what he was doing, Paul was doing and how Shaun was able to call him out on it really quickly. And then for them to go through the test and see that they were all positive. I think Melendez has to be won over slowly but surely, but I think it's coming.
Yeah.
I was going to say, compared to Dr. Andrews, who do you think is a little bit more supportive of Shaun, him or Melendez? I would almost say Melendez. Just a
I
little
feel like
bit.
I got to go back on what I
Yeah.
just said because he is part of Melendez's team.
I agree with you
Okay.
in that Melendez still, you know, needs to coach him. After all,
Yeah.
he continuously says this is a teaching hospital. He still has to coach him.
Yeah.
So I agree with you completely, Tequila, that Melendez needs to work with Shaun a little bit more and he doesn't fully trust him. However, in comparison to Melendez and Andrews, I feel like Andrews has no trust in Shaun.
No, we all know that. I think he's been proving it over the seasons. He didn't trust Shaun.
Yeah, and I think it even, again, if we go back just a little bit to last week when we were all saying just a little bit of his pride, ego, or whatever it is about his position now, that makes him even more suspicious because he knows the truth on just how Shaun came up under Dr. Glassman, and him and Dr. Glassman didn't really even have a good relationship. So I kind of think that all intentionally or unintentionally falls back on Shaun too, and how Dr. Andrews looks at him.
Yep.
And obviously every single week we get new patients coming in and they all have their own stories to tell. I just want to say when they brought in Paul's family to break the bad news to them, all I could think of was what a supportive family and the fact that they were able to come to the conclusion to get the surgery so quickly. Because I don't know about you ladies, but I feel like in past episodes it's been so, you know, there's a lot of skepticism. Should we, shouldn't we, shouldn't we? And especially with Shaun coming in and, you know, doing his thing where he does lay out all the risks in maybe a not so sensitive way. But the fact that this was pretty immediate, I thought it was very nice. And it showed what a supportive family he had. What did you think?
Okay. I think it did show what a supportive family he had, but it also showed that his family kind of, like he said, Paul said he would do anything for his family. So I think as a family, you should also respect the patient's wishes. And you could just see in his eyes, and I think they even noticed that once he passed, that he didn't really want it. And I always say, when it comes to anything in life, trust your gut. You know, at least he would have had, he only had a few hours. Yeah, he would have had at least a year, whereas, you know, he didn't have anything, you know, after his surgery. So I always say go with your gut. But I do love that the family came to a conclusion and he supported their decision, but I wish Paul would have said something. You know, that's so sad, but it happens. It happens, and I love that they highlighted that. So I guess the lesson here is always be considerate of the patient, what they want to do.
And the show does a really great job of being about realistic, about just family values in this part, world values. And I agree with you completely that I felt like Paul just wanted to live with whatever time he had with his family and or still working or whatever it may have come to at that point, and then rest peacefully. I didn't know how to say that nicely. But again, I do think it does also to the emotional effects of your family when you're there in that high pressured emotional situation that he tried to do what was best. So they did unfortunately get to have more time with him. But I also think that the way Shaun brought them together and tried to take the blame off of them, because I thought this big fight was about to erupt in the chapel when them all. So I think the way even Shaun, he learned a lesson from Paul, even, you know, you tell a lie if it makes the situation better, where he just kind of put all that pressure and all that on himself so that the family didn't have to deal with it. And that was a nice coming together with all four of them at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was incredibly proud of Shaun in that moment because he did make it so seamlessly that lie, which we learned was a lie, of trying to make the family feel a little bit more peace in this time of sorrow. I was very proud of him that after kind of the struggling of like, should I, shouldn't I lie, that he was able to do it, and it was because he learned something from the patient.
And that's what I love. Every episode is a lesson for him, and you see when he finally gets the lesson, you see like the smile on Claire's face when she told Claire what's happened. It always makes my heart just warm because I'm like, yes, he got it. That's one lesson he's learned, and I know he's going to keep it with him forever, so he'll move on to whatever is next. But it's also funny in the beginning of the show too, as humans, and like if you ladies want to jump in and let me know your points of view, like he says, I can't believe people ever lie, and I'm like, well, we don't intentionally or purposely want to lie, but will someone ever tell you how to lie, or did you just learn it?
We'll see.
I'll let Veronica answer.
Okay, well, put me in the hot seat. No, well, I mean, I feel like it's just kind of I almost feel like it's just natural for some people. Like, you don't necessarily learn it. You don't know what it is. You just kind of lie. I feel like and a lot of shows do this where it's like, oh, that's lying, where they don't out front say, oh, the shoes were red when the shoes were actually blue. It's not that kind of lie. They just withhold information. And I feel like in a lot of TV shows, that's kind of the muddy ground, is like, yes, I guess you're lying because you're not saying what's actually going on, but you're also just not completely, like I said, you're not completely changing the actual situation, kind of thing. So I feel like that's some muddy grounds in terms of the lying that goes on in TV shows.
Well, I mean, also too is just, I'm sorry, did you want to put your point first?
No.
Okay. It just also, the show, through Shaun, the show makes me think morally about like things that I've been that I've taught or learned just through life, and I'm like, how often do I lie? Like, do I lie purposely? No. Do I lie to like make people happy or just to like dead a conversation? And those things just ran through my mind at that point, because it's like, I can't believe people ever lie. And you're like when did I become jaded at some point? Like, people do lie. So yeah, just his pureness and his honesty kind of throughout the show is a thinking point for me morally.
I've always found it so admirable, honestly, in his character, that he is able to do that and not feel the judgment or not feel the like nervousness that some people would feel if they had to, tell the truth that could be hurtful and so on and so forth. So I always found those qualities admirable.
And one last thing, I always love how the other doctors around him try to explain how it's wrong, but it's right, and then we do it this way for right now. I just love that too. I feel like sometimes you get in those sticky situations if you're speaking to a toddler or you have children and you're like, I don't know, you can't pee in public. And they're like, but why? I gotta pee now. Or you just pee in your diaper. Or when you're potty training, perfect example, like, those things. So that's the last point on that. I'm sorry. I got excited.
No, that's great. So that was proud Shaun moment number one.
Yes.
For me, proud Shaun moment number two is when he was finally able to confess to Leah how he was feeling. I don't know about you guys, but I was like, wow. Like, it got a little intense. Like, you could tell Freddie Highmore, his acting, he was getting into it. Like, veins were in his neck. Like, he was,
he's great.
Very frustrated in his performance and trying to address her. It's like, you need to get out, because if you stay, you're just gonna hurt me again.
Yeah.
And then that was heartbreaking to hear. What did you think of this scene of him being able to finally address Leah after avoiding her all episode?
Ooh.
So I'm gonna have to agree with Billie Jean Girl 24 in the chat. She says that also Shaun was running away from his problems with Leah instead of facing them right away, which thank God he finally did at the end. And I'm in total agreement, because how dare she just pop up like, hi, I'm back, and then ask to stay at his house? Because we don't really know that at the end of the episode
I don't
last
think
week.
she asked.
It was
she
like,
just kind of assumed that I am.
And we could see how Shaun just again would let her do it, because he can't figure out the right way to figure his feelings out, on which he told Claire, I can't say anything because he don't know how he feels. So of course at that moment you're just like, okay, yes, stay. Yes. So the audacity of her, and then not to give like no explanation. She pops up at his job and he's avoiding you, so you then interrupt him at work where that's his piece.
Yeah.
And again, no explanation. So that's why I'm waiting to see how that turns out and what she will do to come back into his good graces. But I was excited. I was just rooting for him through the TV screen when he told her stuff. And like, she tried to plead her case. He wouldn't let her get a word in, excuse me, and then told her to get out. I was happy with that. I was so proud of him from standing his ground.
I was too. I feel like
I love just watching Sequela go like in on.
I'm sorry, I'm being excited. I'm usually emotionally invested in these shows.
That was just great. I felt like one of the one of our viewers watching.
Like stars in your eyes.
Great. Yeah. Okay. First of all, Shaun, thank you for feeding her before you told her off. That was nice.
Oh, that was.
That was very
it was.
nice
It
of
was
you.
very nice. It's like, oh, have a bowl of cereal and a banana because I'm about to.
And then get out.
Yeah.
Because we hungry girls, so we like to eat first
nice.
and then.
Yeah, he was being very nice. So you have to give him that. But yes, he was just letting her know. Finally, Shaun's like learning to express himself. So he was just letting her know, like, that's not okay. And it's not okay. When she came back, she never apologized. I think she only tried to apologize when he confronted her, like, I'm sorry. And he's like, no, you left. That hurt. And it did hurt him. We saw how much it hurt him. So I respect him for standing up to her. But Shaun really did care about her. So I don't, they have to work through their issues. It's a relationship. If you love somebody that much, like I felt like he did, he's probably going to have to, like, accept her apology and see where they go from there. But no, she should not be living with him. Just like,
I agree.
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah, no, I am so happy that he was able to stand up for himself because I felt like Leah felt like she could just come back, barge into his life, and act like nothing had ever happened, act like she didn't hurt him. And I am very interested in to see kind of what happens next, like if they will remain friends, if Shaun will allow himself to open up to a friendship with her. And this might become more in predictions, but in the promo, she kind of mentions like, oh, you're being a jerk and whatnot. And then that just kind of makes me think like, yeah, he might be, I don't know how he's going to continuously act around you, but you have to understand you just up and left and you just came back to his life and he's saying you hurt him and he doesn't want you to hurt him anymore. You have to respect that.
Yeah.
So I am so proud that Shaun was able to tell her that. So Shaun had some pretty great character development this season with everything from his patient case to everything happening with Leah. And Dr. Lim actually had a pretty compelling story this week. But before we get into her story, we have a very special announcement for all of our listeners.
Yes, we have a fantastic announcement. Hey, AfterBuzzers, our network produces after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows. From dramas, reality TV, sci-fi, and more, there is no network that works harder to serve television fans. But we need your help. We're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. By subscribing to our channel, YouTube will suggest content that's tailor-made for you, and you'll help AfterBuzz continue to grow. And if you're worried about pesky notifications, don't be, because they're optional. So hit that subscribe button now for this channel, somewhere around here, and check out our other AfterBuzz YouTube channels as well. Let us know you did in the comments, and we'll thank you on air. I think Tequila will even give you a shout out, right, girl?
Will do.
For now, thanks for being the best fans and for helping us be the ESPN of TV talk.
Thank you, Carolina. That was great. All right, Dr. Lim. I don't know about you ladies, but out of all the storylines we were kind of given this weekend, this episode, I was so invested in hers just because her patient came in wanting vaginal reconstruction because when she was younger, her parents, she was a victim of female circumcision. And, her storyline was just so interesting because she was crossing, I almost was wondering if she was crossing a line because of everything that, the issues with this patient. So let's think, first of all, what did we think of kind of her deciding to do a surgery on a patient who was a minor, clearly a minor with the fake ID, but she decided to believe the false ID and go with it anyway? What did we think of that initial decision?
That was a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I was so nervous from a legal perspective, but I get from a moral perspective that she would want to help her. I think she still should have gotten the parents involved and just got, the Child Protective Services person involved earlier, so just she wasn't crossing any red lines because obviously that upset Andrews and he's like, do you not want the chief of surgery position? So I get it from that point. It's really risky, but I you know, I could see where she was coming from because the story related to her, you know.
I think it was hard because at first when she was in there, I was like, yes, just do whatever you need to do to help her, because she had no say in that, right? Or what happened to her. And it happened to her when she was at 2. But then also when she went to tell Andrews, I was like, oh, okay, so that is lawsuits. You could potentially lose your license. That is your career and your livelihood. So then I was just on both sides, just waiting to see whichever way it dropped. I would have been okay. But I think I was actually happy at the end that she actually did perform the right surgery on the, Mara is her actual name, but Asha was on the identity, the ID card. But I felt like, again, and these are fictitious doctors that we have on the show. However, when you have your doctorate degree and you are performing surgeries, like how do you stay on the line of law and facts every single case and not do better for that person or the greater good of, like she said, of the communities, who other girls who have had the genitalia cutting to them when they were younger not speak up or come in and actually ask for the plastic surgery or for the surgery to be reconstructed. So I thought it was I think I got more invested than I needed to at that point, although, but it just was eye-opening that the way they do this research and where they're getting their information from is still real life in the world today.
Yeah. I agree completely, but I don't know. This entire thing had me so invested, but at the same time, I wanted to be like, yay, Dr. Lim, like morally, I completely agree with you, like you were saying, Carlina, but again, lawsuits, and I felt like she was overstepping her boundaries at times. Like, you are a doctor, you are allowed to give your professional medical opinion, but for example, towards the end of the episode when the patient chose to have the operation where it would be taken completely out instead of reconstructed. And again, you know, the moment where she's like, take it out because of her parents, which before we go into a little bit more about that, let's talk about her parents real quick. Because I completely agreed that she was so afraid of shaming and disappointing her parents that she probably did make a decision based on them and not her. What did we think? Do we think that as well?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, first of all, that type of surgery, you don't want to make decisions about like that in front of your, maybe your mom, but like definitely not in front of your dad, you know, because like it was pretty much like about like pleasure and everything. So I can get that. And also she wanted to respect their culture. Ultimately, okay, I guess the question, do I think Dr. Lynn made a great decision? Yes for the patient, no for the hospital. Because if the parents ever found out, they're in so much trouble.
Well, they're going to later on in life, I would assume they would.
Because when the girl, when Mara woke up, she, you know, felt her cheek and she could realize like, oh, a piece of my cheek is missing or whatever happens. And that let her know that her clitoris wasn't removed like she had initially requested. And I felt that she, like that moment between her and Dr. Lim, like, oh my gosh, thank you. That just nonverbal communication was proof that she was happy. So yes, with Dr. Lim, I'm glad she did make that choice for her too. But then on the other side, if the parents do decide to come back and sue because what the daughter had initially said and then what the Child Protective Service agent had also told Dr. Lim to do didn't happen. I would hope not, because I feel like her mother even understood her daughter's indecisiveness, I guess if that's the right word, because like she said, it happened to her grandmother, her mother's mother, her, and you know, it's just, you don't have no choice. It's just the culture and your cultural tradition. So it just happened. But I feel like the daughter, if she does come out, and we happen to see this on the show too, that the mother would stand by the daughter. Yeah.
See, again, I agree with both of you that morally, I'm so happy that she performed the surgery that allowed her to have an intimate life later on. But I truly believe that she did overstep, because let's just say for a moment that, you know, we kind of knew that there was going to be a happy ending. She was going to get the surgery that she really did want deep down inside. But let's just pretend for a moment that, you know, maybe she still had a lot of hesitancy. What if she had performed the surgery that just repaired her clitoris instead of taking it out like she originally said, and she woke up and was like, oh no, and had all this paranoia and anxiety that she truly did disrespect her parents? Like, what then? You know, it's such a fine line of being like, I'm a doctor, I connect with my patients, I know what she wants, but not getting verbal consent or confirmation. it was
It was
such
a risk.
It was
Yeah.
a huge
Massive
risk.
It was.
It was, and my personal opinion, I thought she overstepped. In the end, it was a happy operation. The patient was happy. Dr. Lim was very happy that she was able to help this girl live a normal life. But I don't know, in that moment, I felt like I would have gone along the lines of Dr. Andrews and just been like, you have to do what's
Taking out her
Yeah.
whole clitoris. Yes. I want to also give a shout out to Morgan, who's putting her teamwork skills in to play when they were all in Dr. Andrews' office, and she was like, "Well, can we talk tomorrow one more time and without the parents to see if her
loved
attitude or
that
question
line.
changes?" And
I
so
loved
was like,
it.
"Okay, I see your teamwork skills getting in there," and of course
Yeah.
she did it in front of Dr. Andrews, so I'm sure he picked that up well too. So kudos to Morgan, who may be turning the leaf, in my opinion.
See, it's funny because in last week's episode, we obviously know that she had a review, and one of our viewers in the comments from last week was saying, in part of our discussion, yeah, she was trying to help Claire, give Claire some credit to Dr. Andrews, but it was also just kind of like showing like, oh, you're not taking your direction, but I am. So it wasn't really her being helpful.
Right.
It was more her like undermining Claire. This time around, I genuinely felt and was so happy
Yeah.
that she seemed to really be trying to help her fellow doctors and help the patient. I was so happy for her in this moment. I was like, you are going to grow on me if this is how you continue to be.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Because she did bring up such a valid point. Like you were saying, Carlina, you can't make that kind of decision with your parents in the room because it is about your future sex life, essentially. And it would be so awkward for her. So I'm so happy that Morgan made that call. It was fantastic.
Like you just said, if she does continue to do that, I might like her now, and she might not be as evil as I thought last season.
We'll see. She's
so
still got a few
evil. Of
course.
episodes.
Yeah.
But I do hope she has more moments like that because that was very impressive to me. So let's go on to our third storyline going on in this episode, which revolves around Dr. Glassman. But before we get into his storyline, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone about iTunes. Of course, you can always watch us on YouTube and discuss with us there in our comments and in our live chat. But if you can't catch us on YouTube, you can always go listen to us on iTunes. Please go rate, review, and subscribe. And leave a comment, and it lets our producers know that you like our show and you want to continue listening to our show. So again, watch on YouTube, listen on iTunes. We really appreciate it. All right, Dr. Glassman, I don't know about you ladies, but for some reason I felt like I wasn't expecting his surgery this soon.
I wasn't either. No, once they started getting it, had him on the table, and it was like, the procedure start counting down. I was like, oh, I was waiting at least 2 more episodes, maybe mid-season even, for
Yeah.
it to be prolonged. But I guess that's a good thing, I hope.
Yeah. Like, I would say it's a good thing considering his medical condition is
Yeah.
very rapid and needs to be taken care of immediately. But as a viewer on the show, it felt so soon
Yes.
that he's already being operated on and we don't know, as Shaun would put it, the complications that come afterwards.
Yes.
I felt like we would have a little bit more of him struggling to actually be able to get in the operating room.
But I mean, he's on a timeline right now. Like it's
Yeah.
cancer doesn't stop. And I think even I forgot the lady who said that, his oncologist.
His oncologist.
Yeah, she's like,
Dr. Glass.
Yeah, she was like, if this tumor has not stopped growing, like unless you know how it's going to slow down. And so she's like, you have to pick a surgeon. And I feel like that's like normal to real life. I know we said like we were expecting it mid-season, but in real life you would pick a doctor ASAP so you can get that out. So that's I think it's interesting. I'm just curious to see how Shaun handles with his recovery and
Yeah.
everything. Brain surgery is super scary. Like my dad had it, so it's just like I just feel
It's
for
very
Glassman.
intense,
Like it's
yeah.
very personal for me. Yeah.
And I think I like how Dr. Glassman is putting that fire, Dr. Glaze is putting that fire under Dr. Glassman for him to take action, because he came with the paper and she was like, so you have, I forgot what she said, the other nurses that were involved, but no
He has a
surgeon.
surgical staff but no surgeon.
Yes, and
basically.
so I was like, yes, get it into him. She was like, so if this is happening with or without your not consent, but with or without the person who he decides to choose tomorrow or not, or she's not going to be his oncologist. And I feel like because he does trust her so much as the next best person besides himself, that kind of put the fire under him and just made him finally decide to pick a surgeon. Also, I think that the conversation between him and Shaun, and I guess again goes back to Shaun's insensitivity, but it's not purposeful. But you're talking about mortality, and you're talking about what could and couldn't happen, as if Dr. Glassman doesn't know that. But I don't think that was, again, appropriate, because that's making him think about his mortalities could be while he's about to go under the table too. So I kind of felt like all of those things combined kind of made him finally choose a surgeon, and maybe that's what sped up his surgery.
What I really enjoyed about this part is, like, we know he's trying to find a surgical team and a surgeon to operate on him. But what I really loved was the moment where Shaun was kind of getting on him, like, what about this doctor? He has a less mortality rate, or he has a higher mortality rate. And it was just very interesting to hear Glassman speak of, like, you know, the more mortality rate is, like, if you have a lower mortality rate, it means you're turning away people, and it means you're less confident. And if you don't have confidence, I don't want you in my brain. Which he makes a valid point.
That was great.
But at the same time, dude, you need, like...
You do want the best, though.
You
It's
do
your
want
brain.
the best. You do.
Like, I had eye surgery. Like, you're going through doctors, man. I met through, like, so many, you know? So you want the best, especially if it's something like any surgery on your face or your head. You want the best, or your heart, you know?
Yeah.
So you're going to go through all those doctors and make sure and check. But he has kind of a point on the low.
I would agree. He does.
I always ask. The question is, viewers, if you guys want to know, you want to ask how many patients, and then the success rate from that. So, you know, if a doctor's like, I had 10 patients and my success rate is 100%, compared to the doctor who's had 50,000 patients and his success rate is 92%, well, which one do you want to go with? You know what I mean? So you have to think about that too.
And I think also, at first, I thought it was his way of continuing to deflect. I don't know if it's because he really wasn't ready, or is not ready to have his surgery, or if it really just in his own mind, because he is the best and he knows what it takes to remove brain tumors, that he just wasn't here for it. So he made up, which logically after his rant made sense, because I was also like, yeah, true, but I still felt like he was deflecting just a little bit. Yeah. But I'm glad, again, we see that he's getting the surgery.
Yes.
I agree with you, Tequila, in that he is a surgeon himself. He knows what it means to do this kind of surgery. He's a top surgeon, and I think one of the most touching lines that he had in this scene was that we can think as an audience, you really want to, if you have a medical condition like this, like, you want to try and survive. Dr. Glassman is so nervous to do this surgery because it's like, I feel like he made a comment of that he would rather die than being alive, because a brain surgery is considered successful even if you have really bad complications afterwards, like some form of paralysis, or your hand starts shaking and everything like that. He doesn't want to come out of this surgery with those complications, because then he really won't be the surgeon that he has made himself to be all these years through hard work. Yeah. So I thought that was very touching and it made me understand a little bit more why he's doing this, he has a really low mortality rate, kind of conversation with Shaun. What did we think about that comment? Do we agree that it shed better light on the situation?
I think when he said that he still wants to be able to dress himself after the surgery, and he didn't know, like, if he couldn't be a surgeon no more, what else would he be able to do? I think that's the point to me where I was like, okay, I can understand why you're being so specific now about the doctor that's going to be cutting into your brain. Yes. But then also too, even when Dr. Murphy asked, or he said that you'll have me, I'll still be here and we'll be friends, and Dr. Murphy kind of sensed, I guess, and he was like, but that's still not enough, is it? And Dr. Glassman is like, sadly, no. So I feel like when you devote yourself to a specific career, especially as being a doctor and a brain surgeon, I feel like that is your life. And I can understand, or a huge part of your life and your being, and I can understand now. At that point, I understood why he was so particular about who this doctor was and where they came from and their skills and all their rates and all their numbers. So that was what I took from that conversation.
I agree.
Great. All right. Before we go into our news segment, our final thoughts on this episode.
Okay. So I think it ended with Glassman getting prepped for surgery. So I think he's a little hesitant, but knows he has to get it done. You can tell he was going into the surgery not really confident. But I think we'll see how it goes. Next episode, I'll leave that for predictions. Where I think really proud of Shaun standing up to Leah. It needed to happen. Ben needed to happen. I honestly didn't know Leah was coming back until we found out last week.
Right.
That threw me off. And then I'll toss it to Quayla.
So I think, again, Morgan really was on my mind, and I'm waiting for her because I'm giving the person the benefit of the doubt until there's like no more doubt and then you're just gone. So I'm hoping that she is really at that point made her feel like the accomplishment, the sense of encouragement it does when you're working with the team. You get that better than when you're working solo at points. So I'm looking forward to her growing in that area. I still need her to be a little bit of a mean girl because I feel like that's how we were introduced to her last
That's
season.
how
So
we
like
know
she
her,
can't change that soon, that quick.
agree.
But I still need her balance now should be a lot better. Claire, I feel like is still. I don't want to say aggressive because that was with her interview, but she's still like in the shadows and she just does what she's told and runs and does what Dr. Melinda, orders her to do. So I'm looking forward to her again growing, and I feel like it's going to be through Shaun that she's going to become more aggressive.
Great. All right, everyone. So we were very interested by Dr. Lim's storyline this week that for our news segment, there it is.
So yes, thank you. It's all upbeat and so lovely. But
Tequila does have some more information about this particular practice, custom. What would you say?
yes, so in a couple of the countries, it's called female genital mutilation, and what that is, it's a different number of variations of being cut in your vagina. And before I even get into more of this, let's say there is some sensitivity involved and maybe even a little bit of explicit information that some of our viewers may not listen to, and we do apologize in advance. But it's about the cutting of women when they are ages at least from birth to about 5 years old. It's done beforehand, and it's the cutting of the female in their vagina area, and it goes as far as using a blade to do this in different countries. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And what it is, it's to be used as control for like women's sexuality and to kind of mask that before you're able to want to give birth or have those feelings really be promoted when you're older. And it also inhibits, ideas of purity, modesty, and so-called beauty in different countries. There are 27 current cases that I've read from the standard. That's the Kenyan standard, one of the cities in Africa. But so 27 countries in Africa, and this also happens in Iraq, Indonesia as well. And there's a few that happens in the States. So it's suggested that it's about 513,000 girls and women who have experienced it here in the United States. Now that does mean, they could have lived abroad and then came in other countries and then became citizens of the States or lived here in the States, but that's about a rough number, about, again, 513,000 girls and women.
Is there any information that you found in regards to, because in this episode they kept going back and forth between, this female mutilation and also the abuse because she was 2 years old. Was there anything in your research that you found where that's those two things intertwine a lot?
Well, it's initially started or caused because it's a way, and mainly the African countries, that the women, the grandmothers and the mothers, it's a way of honor. And it says, let me find it so I can read it verbatim. It's usually initiated and carried out by the mothers or their grandmothers, more so specifically, who see it as a source of honor and who fear that failing to have their daughters or granddaughters cut will expose the girls to social exclusions, which I think is kind of backwards. But it also, again, and it helps them to, again, not be childbearing before childbearing age, and also for them to not, again, be provoked into having those sexuality ideas or lustful thoughts forced through penetration, at least. So I guess, other things that I was trying to look at, I guess you can kiss and, hold hands or things of that nature. But as far as actually having sex and intimacy, those are prohibited until about the age of 30, it says in the article. So that's not, let me not say it as being judgmental. It's just odd because we don't have that here in the States for us. So it's different. It's totally different from the other cities. And so hopefully this show, like they did say in the episode that more women who have gone through the cutting because of cultural standards, because of, you know, the adults in their life, and to way to honor their grandmothers or mothers, that if they do want to have it reversed, that it could possibly lead them to going to speak to a doctor and having the vaginal reconstruction like we seen in the show. And again, we know the show is fake, but I'm sure the research that they did put into the show in the episode is true. So
Everything
maybe that
was
would
done
help.
with,
Exactly,
with
care and concern and multiple research. So I think that would also help to, you know, help other women, like they did say in the show, and girls who, once they get of age and have the reconstruction surgery.
That's so scary. It's sad.
That it is, yes.
Very intense. But thank you, Tuela. That was some very insightful information, especially with the show. Again, as you said, doing it with handling certain situations, very intense and traumatic situations like this with such care. Now, we are running a little short on time, so let us get into some quick predictions for next week.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Who would like to go first?
Ooh, I'll go. I think with Shaun and Leah, obviously I think Leah's going to move out, but I think they're going to really try to work on having like a real relationship and repairing. And I think there's even a line in the previews like, relationships take work, you know? So I'm looking forward to seeing that. They even hinted a little bit about Dr. Glassman post-surgery having hallucinations, which is common after a major brain surgery. So just seeing him cope with like the side effects and how Shaun helps him would be quite interesting.
So head on with the hallucinations. There are a couple of people in the chat that are curious to see what those hallucinations will lead to. And then some of them said that they even seen that his daughter start speaking to him in his hallucinations. So maybe that'll be an encouraging moment while he is while he's asleep. But my prediction is that I think Leah, well, of course, she's going to leave because she got kicked out. Again, good job, Shaun.
I was trying to be nice, Leah.
No, not at that point. There's no nice.
Nah, you got kicked out.
Not nice. Yeah, she needed that.
Go, girl.
Yeah, we're not going to use and abuse Shaun in that manner. But I think she will then turn to Claire to ask for assistance, or Claire's going to come to Leah to wonder, like, what does she do to Shaun? Because Shaun's eventually going to tell Claire what happened now that he figured out his feelings. I think the two of them are going to have a conversation, and if Shaun and Leah do come back together, then it will be because of Claire helping Shaun understand more of Leah, just like last season when she was trying to help him with the relationship and how to communicate his feelings and his intimacy and just the levels of, this is why a girl likes you, and if you like her, these are the things you should do, you know? So I hope that Claire will again be the middle person for Leah and Shaun.
Cool.
I agree. I think Leah is going to try and repair her friendship with Shaun. I don't think Shaun is going to let her. I really wonder how long he's going to kind of resist her advances for friendship, and if he will open up to her again. I am very excited, well, I shouldn't say, I'm curious to see how Dr. Glassman will take to his recovery time, and I feel like this will be a great moment and character moment for Shaun to try and be there for him emotionally, like Jared was trying to, you know, make him do all of the very first episode of this season. So I'm very happy and excited to see Shaun potentially growing in his emotional relationship with Dr. Glassman. Kind of the reverse. Glassman was there for him, now Shaun will be there for Glassman.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm very excited for that. Well, thank you, girls. It's been a great show. Thank you to the Good Doctor fans for tuning into our show. Ladies, where can they find you on social media?
Again, I am Taquela, and for all of you in the chat, thanks for chatting with us this week. You can find Taquela at Taquela_IAM.
Thank you guys so much. You guys can follow me on Instagram at Cooking with Carlina, or on Twitter at Cook with Carlina. I have some pretty cool Halloween recipes coming up.
Ooh. And again, I'm Veronica Valencia. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at It's Me, Veronica V. You can also catch me on The Outpost After Show tonight, Tuesday at 10 p.m., as well as the Survivor After Show Wednesdays at 10 as well. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in, and be sure to tune in next week. See ya.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.